So we are going to run through a live demo. So the purpose of all of this is to talk a little bit about what's important without boring you to death. So let me just pull up the right presentation here. Umesh and I were talking, and he said, John, you've got all this great background. What do you want to talk about? And I told him I wanted to talk about cyber hygiene. And I could feel the breath just run right out of him. All the excitement was gone. So I guess I'll stay here. And Umesh is a very nice man. So there's a very long pause. He just didn't want to say how bad of an idea that was. And I could feel it. And I said, or we could put some sizzle on that steak. And we could kind of flip cyber hygiene on its ear. And we can show people what really happens when cyber hygiene is not adhered to, when it's not followed, which, by the way, in most large organizations, it's not. And we can do a live attack demo. And somewhere along the lines, we got our lines a little bit crossed up because, Equifax, for me to really get that breach going well, I'd need each of you to come up and give me your social security number first. But we're not going to do that. I'm going to do WannaCry. So there's this group that's purported to be associated with the NSA called the Quantum Group, and purportedly they build tools, and purportedly they were stolen. Eternal Blue would be one of those tools. It was leveraged by adversaries in May to take advantage of unpatched Windows systems and encrypt files, make them unavailable, and hold that data for ransom. Well, I think more people in this room, well, let me ask, who here is running Apache struts? Look around. Nobody. Who here runs Microsoft Windows? Okay. So we'll do Eternal Blue. And what I want this to be, instead of having just talk, watch, and then and question and answer at the end, let's have it be interactive. There's a huge range of skills and abilities in this room. There are some people here who know more about what I'm talking about than I do. And there are some people in this room who are going to say, I don't know what you just said. And everybody in between. So if you have a question, ask, and we'll discuss it, because you're not the only person that has it. So anyway, I have to talk a little bit about good cyber hygiene, because it is something that I'm passionate about. STDs, I call this sensitive transmission of data. If you don't use good hygiene, you will lose your data. So, words matter. We're going to talk about what cyber hygiene really is. We're going to talk about the impact. If you don't use cyber hygiene, it hurts, kind of like stabbing yourself in the eye. And then, of course, people talk about, well, why do I need to do this? If you don't, bad things happen, and you're going to pay. So I don't know who's going to get the check, but it's either pay now or pay later, and it always costs more to pay later. So big picture. Got to have good passwords. Shut down, uninstall, or delete unnecessary services. Patch your third-party applications, your operating system, hardware and software asset inventory, configuration management, change control, right? All this stuff we've always heard, but we sometimes can't figure it out. It's easy to talk about, but it's not always easy to solve. And today what we're going to see is, from the adversarial perspective, we're going to put on the black hat. And we are going to look at a network, Memorial Hermann, that is not well defended. Anyone in the room from Memorial Hermann? I'll take bribes and leave now. So it hurts, right? So cyber hygiene, if we think about it, WannaCry, NotPetya, and the Equifax breach are all related to cyber hygiene, specifically patching your OS. Only one element. So if you look at the Center for Internet Security and their critical security controls, the top 5 of those 20 controls are defined as cyber hygiene. We're only talking about one of them. It's crazy. Pay now. I talked about this just a second ago. By using good risk management frameworks and guidance, we can do the right things, we can engage in proper cyber hygiene, and protect ourselves. And these types of conversations wouldn't be complete if we didn't look at the Aussies with their Signals Defense Directorate. They've got their top 35 mitigation techniques. Really, look at the first 4, right? So Google it, look at the first four. What is it going to be? Application whitelisting, patch your OS, patch your third-party applications, don't run as root/admin. Kind of easy. And now you kind of wonder, hey John, does it work? What they did is they took real attacks. They analyzed them, they decomposed them, they figured out how did they work, and they came up with those four things to say it blocks them. Not all of them, but we're talking 90%-ish range here. So it's certainly going to stop your script kiddies and people like me. Or we can pay later in Bitcoin. Or loans are taken out in our names that we don't know about, or someone cashed our tax refund check. They filed our taxes on our behalf, and they haven't. So it's always going to cost money. It always costs less to pay up front. But this is probably what you've been waiting for, right? Hey, I heard you're going to hack something, so when do we get to do it? And really, when we think about being an adversary, and I think we might have some red teamers in the room, the foundation of a good breach, a good pen test, a good red team, is always going to be based on solid intelligence gathering and research of the target. First, you have to pick a target, and then you research the heck out of them through open source to understand the people, their positions, the lines of business that they're in, the wording of that specific industry, or you can actually scrape their entire website for unique words and build a custom dictionary for password cracking later on. That's pretty common. So here, in the recon phase, I want to associate hosts at Memorial Hermann with their IP addresses. I want to start attacking something. And I can't attack something I can't see. So first of all, I have to see that visible host across the internet and know it's alive. I have to engage in host enumeration. And once I know there's something there, it's kind of like a big hotel. All I know right now is the address of the front door. I need to get through the front door and start knocking on all the hotel rooms to see if anybody's listening. Anybody's willing to say who's there. Maybe someone leaves the door wide open. And that's what we do in port enumeration. And then, after we understand that there's an open port, we want to know what service is behind it. Who's listening? What version is it? Is it vulnerable? Once we find this information, we do more research and realize that a certain service behind a port is vulnerable to a buffer overflow attack, or maybe there's been a backdoor put into it. Anybody want to wager a guess why I picked Memorial Hermann? The average price for a complete medical record on the black market is about $1,000. It's a lot more than your driver's license and your social security card or your credit card. It's valuable. And so I wanted to make money. So we're going to go hack. But before we do this, who here understands the golden rule of firewalling off Microsoft services? What is it? I want to say hi too.
Well, if you have like the service account is like a piece of the kingdom, so you can't allow. First of all, it hides your identity to the general account, right? So anyone can go into that service account. You can't audit who that was and who's the service account.
So you're raising a great point about service accounts. I might have asked it the wrong way because I was coming at it from the firewalling of Microsoft services. And really one of the big deals, golden rule, I only have 300 of them, no visibility of ports 135 through 139 or port 445 from the internet. You can't let anybody from the internet see that. Most everybody knows that. Most people who run networks, who are involved in IT security, they look at me like, well, duh, you're an idiot for even saying that, John. Well, as of last night, about 11 p.m., according to the Shodan search engine, almost 950,000 computers across the world have port 445 exposed to the internet, and they're running an unpatched version of the operating system. They still haven't put the patch 17-010 on their machine. They're running SMB version 1. That's pretty terrible. So we're going to attack. Eternal Blue requires an attack on SMB. So I'm only telling you this, so if during the demo you say, well, John, this is ridiculous. Nobody would ever expose 445 to the internet. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. There's 943,625 dumb admins. All right. So, do I need to make this a little bit bigger? Can everyone see okay? My eyes are so bad I can't even probably see it right here. I don't know if you saw me setting up my computer. My arms are too short. I'll blame it on G-forces. I need to enumerate hosts. I need to figure out who's out there. Now, I should have pointed out, and I didn't. I apologize. On that DNS record that we saw from Memorial Hermann, we saw www.memorialhermann.com. So that's their web server. And it was at an IP address of 192.22.24.36. That's their no kidding, publicly available exposed web server. We all have them. No big deal. So what I'm thinking as an attacker is, after I see that information, I'm digging a little bit deeper, I'm doing more research, I'm gaining more data, and what I realize is they actually own the entire bottom half of that Class C, and they've got systems in there. So here, you see my 192.22.22.24.0/25. What I'm going to do is I'm going to enumerate the entire bottom half of that Class C. Any questions about that? Okay. I will not make you do variable subnet length math. And this is going to take 80 seconds. So what I'm using is an open source tool called Nmap. And I'm not hooked to the internet, so I have all sorts of DNS errors, no big deal. And what Nmap is doing is it's going out and it's trying to enumerate all hosts in that section. So it's doing 192.22.24.1 through .126. And did someone say 7? Did someone say 127? No? Okay. That would be the broadcast address so it's not going to. But after it finds a live host, it's going to start tickling those ports. Remember I talked about walking into the hotel to the main entrance and then you start knocking on doors? It's knocking on doors. It's going to knock on 1,000 doors per live host. And what happened was Fyodor, the creator of Nmap, actually did a project where he scanned the entire internet. And he discovered the top 1,000 most popular open ports. So a lot of people think, oh, it's just doing ports 1 through 1024, because those are the well-known ports. That's not true. It does the 1,000 most popular. So I actually just scanned for essentially 126 machines, who's awake, and I scanned 1,000 ports on any machine that was awake. And you see service there. I actually asked, hey, what type of service is behind there? Now, I didn't query for the specific version, but let's take a look at our results. So I'm the attacker. I just ran this command. All right, I see there was a live host on .1 right up at the top here. Everything was filtered, so all 1,000 of those ports are filtered. Go away, nothing for you to see here. But now I see .36, which we know is the web server. It's got a whole bunch of open ports. Wow, that looks pretty interesting. So now, as an attacker, I'm kind of thinking, I wonder what I want to do here. And I dig a little bit deeper, and I see .100. We've got some exposed ports. You guys already know what the host is, don't you? You already know what the host is? All right. I figured you already had my game doped. It's really interesting how bad people misconfigure their systems. There was a hacker who said, what I do is so easy, it's no longer called hacking. So who here has ever opened a web browser and gone to a web page? Okay, so I'm going to look for low-hanging fruit. Port 21, FTP, is open. Hey, let's take a look at what's there. I'm not going to exploit the service. I'm not going to do a buffer overflow. I'm not doing any whiz-bang bypassing authentication with SQL injection. I'm going to do this. FTP. Will you talk? Oh, you will talk to me. What do I see? Medrex database dbase export.xlsx. We're covered. My database is encrypted. My records are safe. No one can ever get in there, except everyone who runs reports and exports data. passwords.txt. Now that's a little bit of a fallacy. I'm busted, because typically it's .xlsx. And usually not password protected. So me and my team, we took down a $7 billion financial services company here in Houston to the point where I was able to print out my own access badge. I stole 3 laptops. I was able to break into the building. I stole a laptop from HR, from finance, and from IT. The IT, I can't even make this up, it's so bad. The IT laptop was not a standard corporate build. It was a one-off, and it was an unencrypted hard drive with a password Excel spreadsheet on the desktop. That was awesome. So, win. So that's bad cyber hygiene, I guess. Another good story about that, so we had put Kali on USB sticks, and when we gained access in there, we just started booting these workstations to Kali and dumping the SAM database and cracking passwords. And we were outside at the CEO's EA's desk, and the president's EA came by, and she's like, "Can I help you?" No. Now we're doing pretty fine. We're doing just fine. Bill sent us up from IT. How's your machine? Apparently it was slow and she needed some help. So, how hard was that?
Stop yourself. I'm very like when you say methods. So they are subject to it. Therefore, they're supposed to be. This is talking about a very bizarre, a very large network solution. And the solution is some certification, of course.
Yes.
And ITAC. And actually PCI, because they have my credit card.
Yes.
So actually maybe.
I might have it too.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the specific level. So these people are subject to these regulations, and 4 of them will scan twice a year. And the minimum we should do is run the assessment, which, I mean, you start with this, right? And we're going to do this assessment, we're sticking to it, and now. You come to that, you stop, you say, no, this is that. Just go fix this stuff, right? And then what's a total? How is it possible? I mean, I haven't tried this against organizations because in my mind, this is just
Yeah.
so these people are like auditors, they don't do each assessments, they don't do assessment, penetration testing.
They do it all.
And
every single company, Target, Home Depot, everyone who's been breached is in full compliance.
this is not compliance. An auditor does this.
Point in time, because compliance is point in time.
So you're saying that at some point they did not audit, and everything was breached, and then somebody went there and messed up with the firewall and caused this problem.
How many people roll out new products, new services, and you want to have more time to test? You talk to your vendor, you don't necessarily get the project management support you need to build a project plan, to build in testing, your dev time, to educate your users, and to build enough time in your schedule to deploy and to optimize and make sure it doesn't break anything. It happens all the time. I can't tell you. So I ran Booz Allen Hamilton's cybersecurity practice here in Houston for a number of years. I worked with very large federal clients, I worked with some commercial clients, and this whole thing called cyber hygiene, people can't get it right. And they make changes to firewalls just to take care of a simple thing, and they're going to change it back later this afternoon. And we all have jobs, and we know how interrupted we are. We have a career where the entire premise of success is we are focus-based. Our job demands strict focus and attention, but yet the role is interruption-based. So how can you succeed? It's very difficult to succeed unless you recognize this and build those firewalls, mostly from your boss. So I don't know if my answer is making sense to you, or if you're just dumbfounded by what you see on the screen, but this happens all the time. 63%, if you read I think it was the 2016 Verizon breach and investigation report, it's like 63% of the passwords used successfully were either stolen, easy to guess, or default. Over 90% of the attacks were due to weaknesses in web or email, because spear phishing is a huge problem. And what we're doing here, listen, I'll come back in December, I'll build shell code that's invoked from PowerShell into a macro and inject it in running process of Excel, and we can get sexy with some spear phishing too. This is pretty basic, right? But that's what the bad guys are really doing. You know, they're using these great tools like Dave Kennedy and his crew built, Unicorn, and they've got these great injection techniques that they're calling with PowerShell. And it's not, people aren't architected to detect it. Right? Because 2/3 of our job is post-breach, detection and response. Prevention is just the first third. Now, I know I got some forensics experts in the room, and they live a life where day to day, all they do is walk into breach. Hopefully not too much like weird bad stuff, though. And
Cannot be is an example of honeypot that is over there to chess.
this is not honeypot.
Okay.
No. Could it be? Yeah, it could be. But if we think about some of the better threat actors, I know we got Alert Logic in the room, so they actually do research and intelligence reports on threat actors, and hey, where are these spammers coming from? Why is it that the folks in Africa do this type of stuff versus Eastern Europe and Russia doing this kind of stuff? You know, it's I lost my train of thought because, like I said, I haven't slept in 2 days. But the good threats will detect the honeypots, and they'll know. And actually, some of the good code that's being written is VM aware. And when it knows it's in a VM, it'll go out, it'll do a GET request, and maybe pull down a very generic and benign image. Whereas when it realizes it's running on a live host, it actually unleashes fury.
I mean, with stuff like this, I mean, it looks, you know, there was a Excel report or whatever on there, but I mean, what we find is a lot of times vendors, like you said, like that, they'll reuse the passwords, your network can be secure, but they're in there servicing the application and they just leave it wide open when they're done. And so a lot of it is we're having to fill vendors, third party, and how many vendors do you have in an organization like this? And someone just like, well, we're doing a migration, let's put these passwords and this database out here. Or running a database error, let's just ship that database off under, you know, unencrypted FTP over there. Meanwhile, and then it's sitting on something and it's been exported outside of the country, they're not aware of it, and then where it goes from there. And so, you know, those type of threats, even though you have all this secure, it's keeping track of, you know, I'm just saying, like, little things like this, but even with everything secure and doing all the due diligence, we find a lot of times all these vendors that are in an organization are, you know, are dealing with those issues.
And I think where we fall prey to some of this is with, I think we do a good job with third-party risk, but they have their own subs. And so you end up with some fourth party and, you know, it ripples downhill from there. So there's some interesting things to consider. But I think really what this illustrates is the impact of bad cyber hygiene. And so you asked, you said, hey, don't they have these audits and examinations twice a year? It's PCI, it's high tech, it's PHI, whatever all these things are. And I said, yeah, at a point in time. That's one of the things, the beauty behind the critical security controls for the Center for Internet Security. 15 of those 20 controls are meant to be deployed in an automated fashion. They run 24/7 by 365, so you can get those constant measurements. You can understand, did my system stray from the baseline? And by doing that 24/7, and 24/7, okay, so you snapshot it once a day maybe, to detect if it strayed from the baseline, you're now only running through log files for a day's worth to figure out what happened, as opposed to, oh yeah, I do this once a quarter. Oh crap, it just changed. I'm now reviewing 90 days. No, I'm not. My log retention does. Wow, hey, when did you change log retention? I only have 30 days of logs. I can't find what I'm looking for. I said, well, when did you last do this? 90 days ago. Has that ever happened to anybody? Has anybody in this room gone to find log files that didn't exist anymore? I have. Who here does incident response handling? Have you ever complained to your client that they had too many logs? Right? No. Okay. So Pretty quick and dirty example of how bad cyber hygiene puts the advantage to the attacker. And really, as defenders, we just want to tilt the tables to our advantage. We want it to be advantage defense, not advantage offense. And we can get a little bit sexier even. So, does anyone know what distribution I'm running right here? So Kali Linux. I'm going to use a tool called Metasploit. And we saw that .36 had an open, let's do it. So we saw that .26 has an open port 21. So let's take a look at it a little bit deeper. I don't just want to look at port 21. I know it's open. I want to understand the version of the service behind the port. So let's dig. So Nmap right now, it'll actually interact with the service just a little bit to do its best guess of what it is. In the old days, it was WUFTPD. That was terribly vulnerable. I know. I ran it. The Chinese got into my network and they owned me. That's how I got involved in all this. It was 1999, and a company that I owned got hacked by the Chinese. They confused me with the American government after the Navy spy plane had a mid-air collision with a Chinese fighter, and that Chinese fighter pilot died. And they hacked my company. And I had open WUFTPD, allow anonymous, upload enabled. Yeah, that was great. Okay, so why do I say that? WUFTPD stunk. It was replaced by the very secure FTP daemon. So it looks like we're running the very secure FTP daemon. We don't exactly know what version it is, but we know it's something or later. We're going to roll the dice. I just stole the password file, and I put it into my attack machine. Now, any Unix heads in the room, or Linux heads, maybe? Do I have everything I need to crack the passwords? No. What do I need? Etsy Shadow. Excellent. So I'm going to say, God, I wish I had a real mouse. Unprepared. I am going to cat the Etsy Shadow file. Cool. Should have brought my cheaters. So nano shadow.txt, and we paste. So I'm still on my attack machine, right here, in a different window. I now have both pieces of the puzzle to create the file that I will crack. So we know it's called, there's a shadow file, we're going to unshadow. Well, I said I'm really tired. Oh my God, I don't remember how this works. What do? Press enter. And it tells me how to use it. So I'm going to unshadow, and I give it the password file, and I give it the shadow file. Now this is going to produce a hash file, so I'm going to output it. Anyone? The redirection, that's a little redirection caret there. I'm going to create a file called hash.txt that contains everything I need. Now, I'm going to, just in case, I'm going to go into my John folder, and I'm going to delete anything that I might already have in there. Cool, nothing there. So I'm going to tell John, hey John, crack my stuff. This is not hard, right? It's a program. I type in its name, and I feed it the password hashes. John does a few things. It's got 3 main modes. First 2 are super fast. Third one, not so much. Oh, huh. Now, part of cyber hygiene was to pick the good password. Long, complex, hard to crack, not found in a dictionary. Hard to guess, easy to remember. I know what NIST said with all their stuff, right? Make it long, don't change it till there's evidence of breach, so on and so forth. Let's save that for the developers who are writing authentication modules first. Okay, Postgres. What is that? Anyone want to take a guess?
Postgres is a MySQL derivative after Oracle bought up MySQL and thrown it.
Okay,
Good. Postgres is commonly used as a
open source database, open source relational database. Thanks for hosting, by the way. Thanks for sponsoring our food and beverage. We've got a user whose password is user. We call that a Joe password. That's not very good. And then we've got an admin. So, look, we've got a service account too. Yeah, and guess its password is service. And we've got a few other things. So it's now running its third stage of cracking. So there's some other things it hasn't cracked. It's in the brute force portion now. It's done the dictionary lookups and some of the more like guessing for Joe passwords. For the sake of the presentation, I'm just going to break that off. We're going to stop the brute force. Why? If I have access to this machine by exploiting the FTP service, why do I care about passwords? Why do I care? People reuse them. Bad cyber hygiene. So like, don't reuse your LinkedIn account password on Ashley Madison. Just a thought. My views represent mine and not my employer. Okay. What if they wake up? What if they patch this machine? My exploit doesn't work. What do I want to do? Backdoor. I want to create some persistence. Anyone familiar with Netcat? Let's set up a listener. We're going to put it on port 8843. Kind of made it up. And we're going to feed it a shell. So we're actually shoveling a shell out to anyone who connects to this machine. So this machine is going to essentially say, hey, I'm listening on 8843. And if you choose to connect to me, I'm going to hand you a shell. I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom. I hope my syntax is correct. All right. So I come over. Yeah, we can do it over here. So I'm going to, let's give you guys some real estate. I'm going to connect to my host on port 8843. I wonder what happened. Ugh, where's my root pound sign? I don't have it. I'm going to do an if config. .36. So I have now created a backdoor on this target. If they patch their FTP daemon, I can still get in. What's the problem with everything I've done so far regarding persistence? Will this be a persistent backdoor? No. What do I do? Cron. What was that?
Ensure reconnections, possibly encrypted, use SOCAT. I don't think they actually need to even allow on normal Netcat Linux boxes anymore.
They don't. So you'd have to use dev. You could go out for TCP dev.
That's
Yeah.
why only certain Linux installs will have that available. And like, I mean, obviously this will show up in process list, so if anyone can access it, you can see process list up in Netcat.
I told you there's people in the room who knew more about this than I did, right? So what he's getting at is hide, understand the environment you're in. You might not have, like when I did that -E, most all modern Linux distributions now don't allow you to do that. So the bad guys got around it by doing stuff through a different type of a socket. That got defeated. So then they came out with SOCAT. SOCAT is, that's the encrypted version of Netcat, right? So now they've got an encrypted version of Netcat. So at least you can kind of still get the data out, and it's, even if it's detected, they can't make any sense of it, but certainly it would show up in a process list. So maybe someone wants to dump in a user mode or a kernel mode rootkit in here to hide their presence, to do other types of things to cover their tracks while maintaining persistence. So those are great inputs. What are you doing for the next 20 minutes? All right, we're going to get out of here. And I want to be eternal blue. So let's go and get that Windows host. And this really is okay. This is how easy it is. I couldn't. Oh, that's terrible. All right, that's not going to work. So There. So I'm kind of fumbling around in the dark, but we can still find it. I want to have a payload. I want, you know how I kind of did that reverse shell on the FTP server? I want to do it again here. So I'm going to set my payload to So I am going to shovel a shell from the victim back to me. I'm going to catch it, and I'm sending it with HTTPS over port 443. It'll be encrypted. Who here blocks outbound port 443? Nobody. So I'm going to show my options and okay, what is it doing? It's sending the attack code to the target to exploit the flaw in SMB v1 because the machine is unpatched. After it exploits that, it's going to jam in my payload and execute my payload in memory and then send the shell back to me encrypted. I now own this machine. So it's a Windows 7 Ultimate, and I can drop into a shell. I get my C prompt. Let's see, any users? Oh, they have a Postgres user here. Huh, wonder if he uses the same password. Looks like this guy's got some medical billing records. Jackpot, I got my $1,000 per record. That's how easy it is when a bad guy can find systems that have poor cyber hygiene, networks with poor cyber hygiene. What this does is it turns a single breached system into wholesale compromise. Probably just 2 more minutes. And I'll be here afterwards for any questions or one-on-one, but any questions from the floor before we get our sponsors up here and start giving stuff away for free? Yes, sir.
I don't have a question related to this. Oh. Good. Yes. So first of all, thank you for serving. I appreciate that. Secondly, as a fighter pilot, you were very much familiar with the OODA loop, correct?
Yes.
Observe, orient, decide, act. I'm surprised why a lot of people do not build that into the various phases of their incident response plan. And would you comment on that, please? Thank you.
So it's a great comment, and I think it harkens back to what I said before. People, I don't want to paint in such broad brushstrokes, but it's a very rare person at work who is faced with a task and an unreasonable deadline who puts significant thought, effort, and quality into their work product. That's not going to get you to your kid's soccer game. It's not going to let you hang out on the weekend with your wife. So people who are extraordinary put thought, effort, and excellence into everything they do. That's not the majority.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know there are going to be a lot of questions, but in order to keep it to time, I'll try some semblance of time. Well, wow, let's give him a big So I also wanted to applaud the efforts of this group. I wanted to recognize the work of several people in here who answered the call for volunteerism to the HISD